Well, hello there! Welcome to Anime Sisters, our channel where we do anime stuff for your entertainment. So, this video, we're going to be reviewing Yashahime Season 1. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Now, I will say this. If you watched our reactions, you'll notice or you'll remember that Katina and I never complained about Yashahime. And that's because when these people, these creators, give us something that we've wanted or something that we didn't even know that we wanted, we take it in, we accept it as it is, and we're just like, yes, we feed on it. But for this review, we won't complain, but we will be critical of everything that we thought was good and was ugly.
So the way we're going to do this is we're going to talk about our expectations for Season 1 and then the reality of it, whether it fulfilled those expectations or maybe it was better than them, or maybe it just went like...
Just fell to pieces.
Yes. Okay, so first, pacing.
So my expectations for the pacing, like when they're like, okay, Yashahime next generation is coming, the pacing that I thought was that it was going to be more adventure. I was thinking that these girls were going to travel and search for these pearls, like actively search for these pearls. Maybe a little bit more like Inuyasha.
It's like how Inuyasha had, like even though Inuyasha had a lot of fillers, it was still almost like you were just enjoying the characters and stuff.
Exactly.
Because it was just slower. Everything was slower. Even when there was like some kind of like crisis, even that was like split apart in multiple episodes. So the reality of it is that Yashahime just was rushed. It was like bam, 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 bam. And then there was like moments where like it felt like it should have been prolonged, like a battle with a certain, like one of the four perils. It felt like it should have been, slower, especially when the four perils got destroyed. You started to think like, are these four perils even important? Are they even integral? Because of how fast they were killed off. And I think that even if they weren't as important as other characters, because they introduced them into the story, they should have taken their time to really like flesh them out, let us fill it out a little bit, and then go on to the next thing. Because even in Inuyasha, not to just do purely comparison to Inuyasha, but it's like
it's a sequel, so it makes sense to compare it.
It does make sense.
It's not a standalone show. It's a pure sequel, so you would think that it'll follow.
Yes, you're right. That'll follow that sort of pacing. Because let's think about Inuyasha when they were fighting the band of 7. So there were 7 of them, and even though there wasn't 7, they didn't separate like each a death every episode. It was like it was a whole arc. And that's what it is.
That's it.
Yashahime has no arcs. Isn't that crazy? It has no arcs. Like every time we think there's gonna be like some kind of continuity. The most they did was like 2 episodes of something when they were stuck in that like dimension with with
Konton.
Yeah, with Konton, when they're stuck with the dimension, they put that into like 2 episodes. But yeah, there's no arcs, and I think that is going to impact character development. But we're gonna talk about that later.
Yeah, and I was thinking that every time that you were wanting to hold on to something that you felt like was going to be continuous, they just let it slip through your fingers.
That is what we're going to talk about next. Continuity.
Yes.
Continuity, what we mean by that is some kind of like thread that kind of moves you along so that you don't feel like it's choppy, but you're kind of just flowing with it. And every show has different forms of continuity. They do it maybe by the characters, or they do it by the plot, or they do it by the storyline, whatever it is, but something that lets us go along with you.
With that, I really didn't have any big expectations until the first episode, because I didn't know what the plot was. So as soon as they started with the first episode and they like showed the flashback and I saw the OG cast, I was just like, woo! So then my expectations started, because they're fighting the root demon. So I'm just like, okay, the root demon has something to do with it. And then after that, it jumps to the second episode and you're just like seeing Towa's life and everything.
The flashback of the fire.
Yeah, and so you're just like, okay, something is happening. But you still kind of have like, okay, root demon. Then this third episode, then that changes. And then the following episode, then that changes. And you're just like, And then the confusion sets in because is it the root demon? Is it the pearls? Is it this
Trickio?
Is it Trickio? And then does it have to do with this beast demon that they introduced?
And then we get to this point where finally Towa's like, I'm going to help Setsuna find the dream butterfly.
Yes.
So you're like, that's it. That's the thread. That's what we're gonna follow. This is what we're gonna follow.
Then literally this episode after that,
cats?
Yeah, cats. You just like, and I think at that point, that's when I reacted. I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna enjoy the show. I'm not gonna do any more theories. I'm done. I'm just gonna follow it because it was like literally nothing to hold on to. And in the next episode, I was just like, oh crap, they introduced something else. I have a theory. So it literally just takes you on this emotional roller coaster of, okay, it's this. No, it's not. It's this. No, it's not. It's this.
We forgot about this one that we're holding on to. When Trickio was just like, you're about to go on this grand mission. You have to destroy Kurumi. Setsuna's like, nah, fam. And we're like, what? So that was also like a moment that you thought you were going to have another point of continuity.
Yeah.
So Catalina basically said what was the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
You thought you were going to hold on. Almost like, once again, let's pair it with the predecessor.
Yes.
Where like, Inuyasha started, the jewel was split apart. Mm-hmm. So for a while, you were following that because you're like, okay, they have to put back together the jewel.
Right.
And then later on, they introduced this Noraku character. Mm-hmm. And you're like, what? So then it's like a two things playing with each other. Okay, fine. Like now we have to kind of find these Shikon jewels. Well, what's more important is destroy Noraku because he kind of jacked up all of our lives in separate ways. But we'll still also kind of look for the jewels too. Oh, it turns out Noraku has most of the jewels. Let's just find him. So basically there was something to flow. And then we're also following Kagome and Inuyasha's like love development.
Right.
And then we're also following Sesshomaru's like, okay, he's kind of changing as like this into more of a compassionate person. We're also following Koga and his group trying to find Noraku. So everything had like some
point
flow.
of center to center it.
There was this clear continuity. Mm-hmm. So with Yashahime, I really was expecting them to go with the butterfly one.
Yeah.
I thought they were gonna truly go with that butterfly, following that butterfly wherever it goes, all of this stuff. But then when they started to talk about Rin and everything like that, I'm just like, okay, I can get behind that. Like maybe it's a whole like, let's find out about our family history. Even that would have been a really good point of continuity.
Right.
But it's almost like they were fighting each other. There's like, should we just focus on these three girl characters and really flesh them out? Or should we feed to the nostalgia craving fans and just like really have it about them? And it's almost like they couldn't decide.
Right.
And so both of them got lost.
Both of them
in
got
the
lost.
Sauce.
Yeah.
Yes. So our next point is the theme.
Ah, yes.
So this goes really well with continuity. That thread, that thought, that motif.
Right.
Okay, what are your expectations?
So when you think Inuyasha, the theme, I think the deepest theme is togetherness, finding family, and friendship.
Belonging.
Belonging.
It's so good.
Yes, that's the theme because every single character had that thing where they were alone, and then when they came together, they built this beautiful bond. And I think that's why we cherished Inuyasha, the show, so much, because it kind of just gave you that feeling of like a friendship. It just kind of make your heart all warm and stuff. So that was my expectation. So when I saw that they were all kind of like split up, I thought that was what was going to happen is they're going to all come together and find this sense of belonging too, and then the search for their parents, you know?
The reality is that they introduced that concept. So they had Setsuna like, I'm a half demon, not even acknowledging that she's a half demon until Moroha keeps saying it, and it kind of makes you realize that she kind of has a thing about it. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is there's these rare moments in the show where they really kind of go into that friendship aspect. We're family, we actually are a unit in a group.
Right. Moroha said that a couple of times, how she was alone and stuff.
Yes, and I feel like that they touched it. They touched on it, but I felt like that could have been brought out more. Especially since they were sisters and cousins that didn't know each other. Like that could have been such a beautiful like theme throughout. And then another theme that I felt like they introduced, but they didn't like, you know, was when Towa talked about being weak. Like Towa was saying, like, I don't have this belonging here. Once again, that theme, they hinted at it, but they didn't. Anyway, but she's like, I don't belong here, present. And she's like, you have to just be strong, like, because the weak, you can't be weak and all this stuff. And I remember, if you guys go back to our first reactions of that episode, I remember I was all like, I was like hammering on that one so hard. I'm like, that's important. That's important. Every time my sister's like, yeah, I know. I was like, no, listen to this one.
Yes.
I was so about it.
The weak and the strong.
Yes. And that's why when they didn't mention it throughout the whole series, I'm like, what?
Right.
But then they mentioned it right at the end. And I'm just like, wait, but that's so important. And I think this leads to a really important part is character development. Because I feel like that was a big part of Towa's character that wasn't developed. But let's talk about this character development.
Yes,
the power-ups, the relationships, all of that. Let's talk about it.
So my expectations for character development really, I guess, was really high. Because
fair enough. It's pretty important.
Yes, because I saw the slow and beautiful development of all of the OG characters.
True.
So I was really like, I'm telling you, the bar was up here.
Yeah, the bar was high.
Yeah, I
can't deny that.
Yeah, for them because you had, Towa in one place, Moroha in one place, and then Setsuna in one place. So I kind of wanted to see how Towa started to feel that sense of belonging when she felt like she always had to fight and everything, and that she kept just talking about letting go of her sister's hand and all of that. So I really wanted to see how that would develop. And I also was thinking how, which wasn't really introduced until later on, but how Moroha was always by herself. But she was just always, Moroha is just always the center of like wisdom, in the group. So I was thinking like that would kind of develop. And then she just became the comedic relief.
Which would have been fine if they would have.
Yeah.
Expectations.
Oh, yeah, expectations, yeah. So, I kind of wanted to see that develop. And then Setsuna was like this tough girl and everything. And you know what? I didn't want that to change. But I thought that the bond between sisters would just like slowly develop over there.
So the reality of the situation is that almost like how it was with the themes, where it was like this like kind of compartmentalized moments, it was the same with character development. There was these episodes where it was like that character like growth was like, or character demonstration portrayal was like on point, especially with Moroha. It was just like bam, like this is who she is, this is great, but once again it wasn't weaved throughout. It's almost like they're separate entities, and they almost hinted at it sometimes, and sometimes it was lost. So let's go back to Towa. So for instance, she had the letting go of the hand, all this type of thing. And the thing is, they introduced her as a character who had struggled with being overpowered. So that was the thing. It was funny because it's like that's what people were kind of like not like their kind of feeling was like a little bit cheesy about her character, that she was overpowered, but that was actually part of her struggle, is that she was overpowered, and they introduced that in the first few episodes. But then I think why we were struggling with it as viewers is because when she went back to the past, it's almost like she just became like this very like sentimental, sensitive like person, and it's almost like I feel like the character development would have helped that, because it would have been like, okay, she's this person who was alone. She had these memories of her precious sister, but she doesn't have it fully. She doesn't feel in place. So then she goes back to the past. They could have made her like struggle with being overpowered, like kind of being over it, but at the same time, all of a sudden showing her sensitivity to the situation, because that's how they did it when she was beating up those bullies. She was beating them up. She was about to hit a final blow, and then all of a sudden she was just like, they were like, oh, don't do it. And she's like, let him go. And that's what I was expecting to continue into the past. Like she was going to be like destroying these demons, but then all of a sudden be like, wait, I actually don't want to destroy. Like kind of like a little showing of her sensitivity. And I felt like they just kind of like threw it like jumped all the way to the other spectrum of her, of what they wanted her to end up as.
Right.
Because they knew that she was next to Setsuna and that would cause more sentimental feelings. But I feel like that's perfect. Mm-hmm. They should have let it be a slow thing of like, I am a sensitive person, like, and I don't like how Setsuna is so hard against the world. Like, I feel like, you know, we can do something different because no matter what, from the beginning, Towa was introduced as someone who has a heart. So it's like, let's show how it goes in her character. Right. And I think with Setsuna, that would have been perfect because that would have helped her character develop too, that she was like this kind of hard, very distant person. And but then at the very end of the show, they have it where she's like, oh, hers was tricky because they did kind of make it a slow development. Honestly, she had the best, like,
she did have
slow
the best
development.
Yeah,
she had the best one. But I think it's because of all the jarring, like, rough thing. And then Moroha was the best all-around character until they kind of, like, no matter what, she was the best all-around character.
Yeah, Moroha was.
And I think it was beautiful when they even showed her past. Like, her wisdom, like my sister said, was my favorite part. Like, she just was so knowledgeable. It's like she really took, like, both aspects of her parents. It was so beautiful. Like, so that's kind of the reality situation. Towa could have been way better, especially since they're making her, like, more of a central character of the story. They're making her the glue of the story. So I think they should have did much better with her character development.
Oh, and then let's talk about these power-ups.
Oh my gosh, these power-ups.
With this, I'm really centralizing it on Towa because for the power-ups because when it came, my expectations, you know, when it came to the other girls, it was kind of like, okay, they lived in the feudal era for a long time. They're used to it, you know, whatever. But then, so when it came to Towa, when she kind of went back into the past, I was expecting her to kind of learn everything, the ropes and stuff. So when, I think it was the cat episode, you know, when she like really powered up and she was able to separate the demon and the person, it's almost like, yeah, that's cool. But I had to like Jedi change that in my head, like, okay, it's because of this. I had to come up with the reason why that happened. It wasn't just laid out for me in the show. And that was the thing. It's like, it was a lot of thinking about, okay, they probably had that power up because of this and that. So it wasn't just laid out, you know?
So the reality of it, if we're going to talk about that, and I actually want to go from Towa, but another episode, is that they did well in showing that even though Towa was overpowered, that she was still not understanding the feudal era. I actually really liked that part. I thought that was great in terms of character development. Because like she couldn't sniff things out, like she struggled with all of that. I think they did that really well. And one of my favorite parts of that with character development is when Moroha was in the background. She was gonna sneak attack on Tetsu, which is like that guy that like sucks in like all the stuff or whatever. One of the four perils, and then what is it? Towa recognizes what she's about to do and gives her a nod. I thought that this was gonna be one of those like plot flaws where like they're giving a nod and like somehow no one saw that she gave a nod, but then it actually did ruin the plan. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they showed that was,
and they got pissed.
Yeah, and they showed that it messed it up, and I love that so much because I'm like, yes, this is great character development. Like she's overpowered, but she doesn't know anything about this past time, and I was like, yes. But as far as like the power up specifically, I felt like, because of the character development of Towa, because hers was the most like the least developed character in our opinion. I felt like that affected our view of her power-ups.
I think so.
Because if they would have really sunk it into our skin that she is overpowered, but that's also part of her struggle, then we would have been okay with those power-ups. We would have been like, okay, that's not even the point of what her growth is supposed to be. Because Setsuna's like really smart on the field, but you know, she struggles with like the actual power part. And I think even Kohaku mentioned that, like she was, in their battle, she was gonna hit him with a blade. He's like, your form is perfect, but your your blade is dull, like your blade is not sharp enough.
Right.
And I'm like, oh shoot, that's great. Like those stuff.
Right.
They should have been better, like with the character development. Moroha, still great.
Yeah.
Honestly, they did great with the reality of Moroha is that they even did great with, I think, her attacks, how she battled, all of that stuff. She was super smart with it. She did cool tactics. They were really good with that. But that last episode of season 1, that was a little bit.
That's much.
I think. Okay, the reality of it is that was a lot. I feel like they didn't earn all of that awesomeness that they exhibited. There is a power that you get when you are completely distressed. That is a real thing. Like there's like real life stories of like these weak women like lifting up in real life. Whole cars if they see their child in distress. Like you do get strength when you are like about to lose something or crazy or whatever. But that was a lot of strength.
That was a lot of strength.
And I think when it comes to power-ups, Setsuna's was the best in the show. Like, they did really well with Setsuna's power-ups.
Because it was very consistent.
It was very consistent. Made complete sense. She had this human blade. Wasn't, whatever. It was making her weak. Her blade was sealing her demon energy. So it would make sense when the seal was loose that she would
lose control.
Yes. They did great with her power-ups. And then when she got the blood thing, no one said anything. It made sense.
It made sense.
I was like, oh, true? Like, her blood was sealed, da-da-da-da-da. Like, honestly, Setsuna, they did great with hers.
Really, really good. You never questioned Setsuna.
Yes. Honestly, great development with her. Even when she was the one to get killed, it still made sense. Like, you're like, yep, that's it.
And another thing with Towa and the power-ups is that she didn't lose control of her demon form. And then I think that's a continuity. I can't say that word.
Continuity.
Yeah, continuity thing because we know in shows like in the show Inuyasha that you get into demon form and then you lose it. And that's the same thing happened to Setsuna. So the thing about Towa not losing it, to me, I'm just like, okay, well, it wasn't sealed because Inuyasha, even though it was technically not sealed, it was connected to his Tetsaiga. So when he's away from it, when it's far, he starts to turn into the demon form.
Or when he's near death.
Yeah, when he's near death, in distress. So the thing is, Towa never had anything like that. Like, there's nothing that would stop or keep her. So I feel like her demon form is connected to her emotions. What Riku and eventually Kirimaru found out is that if her sister's in trouble, then she'll turn into, like, her full power. They didn't even call it, like, really demon form.
They really did.
It's like this full power. So I'm just wondering, like, is that her demon form?
I think it is her demon form, but she should have still been crazy.
Like, I
mean, Towa is a powerful girl, but like that's something completely like that is the half demon struggle. Like you can't just pretend like that's just not something that's happening. Because even they did great with Moroha showing that she was crazy every time she put on that rouge, but then because of that episode where they showed that her growth and facing her fears, which was so beautiful. Honestly, they did really good stuff with Moroha's character development. Facing her fears and everything, it made sense in that episode that now when she would put on the rouge, that she wouldn't go crazy because it's like we saw her face that. But with Towa, it didn't make sense that she didn't go crazy. It was cool. It was real cool. Even the whole fighting power-up was cool. But it didn't really make sense. Like, especially when we saw the episode when they're showing that fire demon who caused the fire, how crazy she went just with the thought.
She should have went crazy.
Yes, just with the thought that he started that fire that caused all of their suffering. She was so upset and she wasn't even in demon form.
She should have She
should have been on hands and knees.
Yes.
Like she should have been like crazy. I wanted to see that hair like just going all wild.
Yes, they could have really like sewed that emotional everything of her just losing it. But she was just so controlled.
Honestly, and that's one of the things of this anime. They did it ever go there.
They didn't.
You know, Inuyasha had these dark undertones. It was bloody at many times. Most of the time, it was bloody. All this stuff. But, like, even when Setsuna first changed into her demon form, it was pretty, like...
Yeah.
Instead of, like, how when Inuyasha changed, it was like...
Yeah.
You know? Like, it was crazy. And then he was, like, slicing up his friends and stuff. And he felt so guilty about it. And I just... Yeah, I feel like I felt like, honestly, that is my biggest thing about Yashahime. Every episode, I'm like, it's too light. Even when Setsuna was cut, like, they're not going to show her fully cut, but in Inuyasha, they would have showed, like, the blood gush when she got hit. But that one was just like, did she get sliced? And then when she's laying down with that beautiful, peaceful smile that makes you cry, you know, then you saw that she was fatally wounded.
Right. Yes. So
if we're going to recap, the Yashahime has so much potential. There is some really great stuff. Mora's character is astounding. Setsuna was very consistent in her character growth. And they have like these really like nice isolated incidents of showing that they could be friends and family and all this stuff. So when it comes to season 2, we're expecting it to kind of go to build on these concepts that they put down.
I would like season 2 to keep up what they were doing towards the later half. Not moving as fast because they were moving really fast.
No arcs.
But at least sticking to a theme or a plot, you know.
Continuity, I think, is the key for Yashahime. So are you going to stick to the characters growing, like how they grow as half demon, how they grow as friends? Are you going to stick to the theme of the week and all of this? Are you going to stick to the family aspect and how their families are just being torn apart and it's going to come together? Are you going to stick with the dream butterfly thing? Like, what are we going to follow?
And then these pearls were scattered. So
are we going to stick to that?
Let's not make it a thing where like you introduce Trikyo for one episode and then we never hear about her again.
And the thing is, I'm even wondering, we're trying to recap, but that is a great point. I'm even wondering, like, I actually am starting to not even understand that whole setup, because she literally said there's 2 different paths and they're going on this path and you have to destroy one to destroy other. But like, where that it's almost like that whole thing got lost. That's really a great theme that actually also got lost. That's a great point of continuity. That could have been another point of continuity that we could have followed, but it got lost too.
Exactly. So for season 2, I would really like them to stick to some type of thread that kind of leads us. So even when there's filler episodes, even when there's anything going on, you kind of knew that they were moving along the same place, you know? So I would love to see that. So I'm really excited for season 2. Like with everything that we said, I'm still like, let's do this, because I feel like they kind of, I want to believe that they kind of fleshed out some stuff and they really will kind of go through.
Ultimate expectations for season 2: a slower pace, better feelings of friendship and connection. They're family, man. We shouldn't even be thinking like, do they know that they're cousins? Do they know that Sesshomaru is their father? We shouldn't be thinking those things at this point. We should be certain that they know it and that they're feeling it. We should be seeing it. And then you know, better with like those power-ups and all of that. So ultimately, character development and points of continuity is slower pace is what we're wanting for season 2. So our thoughts on Yashahime season 1 is that it was a beautiful, beautiful gift. Never knew that we were gonna get it. I ironically was just finishing Inuyasha, like watching it again, and it was crazy because then all of a sudden like they released Yashahime. I was like, oh my gosh, like what? And so it was crazy. So Inuyasha was actually real fresh in my head because of that. So it was a beautiful gift. Like, I am grateful. We were both like just crazy grateful for it. So that's why we believe in it. That's why we want to see these changes, and that's why we wanted, because they introduced such great stuff. So like, come
Come on.
Give it more.
Yes.
We want to eat. We're hungry.
Yeah. So let us know your thoughts. What were your, your pros and cons? What are you looking forward to season 2?
Mm-hmm. Your expectations.
Right.
And then the reality of it. Because there was a lot of good, but then there's a lot of things that could have been worked on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Sisters.
Out.